Welcome back. Shares of Lululemon have rallied recently, up about 25% since August, but that still brings them to a decline of 42% so far in 2024. And as you can see in your screen, down 27% over the past 52 weeks. I'm joined now by David Swartz, senior equity analyst at Morningstar, to talk about the company and to talk about the stock as well. David, thanks a lot for joining us. You have noted in some recent commentary that the market is concerned about growth in the company's largest geographical segment, that's the Americas. Rising competition and changes in consumer tastes are the worry. You, however, think the company's brand power will see it through this. Why don't you explain?
Yeah, I do. Lululemon still has a great brand. It's still very popular. It still has a reputation for high quality products, and I don't think any of that has changed. I do see that this year has been a tough one for the company. We have seen a significant slowdown in its North America sales from its traditionally very high numbers. A lot of companies would like to have Lululemon's numbers, but Lululemon right now is struggling in comparison with its historical results, and that's a combination of competition affecting Lululemon. It's a combination of the company being a lot bigger than it used to be, which makes it harder, and already close to the number of stores really in North America that it needs. And then we've also had a slowdown in sportswear in general this year. Nike has had a much more difficult year than Lululemon has, for example. And then you've had an issue with Lululemon's products. Lululemon hasn't had a lot of new products this year in comparison with past years. There's been turnover in the product development side of the company. And so there's been a number of issues this year that have really affected Lululemon's growth in North America, which still represents the majority of its sales. Where is the competition
coming from chiefly? You mentioned Nike. Is that one? Would Under Armour be another? Or is it the leisure wear, the athletic wear makers that we're familiar with that are posing the most competition?
Certainly they are competitors, and they have gone after Lululemon directly. A few earnings calls ago, Nike talked about putting out more leggings that cost over $100 a pair, which was a clear shot at Lululemon, which traditionally is one of the few companies that can get that kind of price. But we've also seen others that are perhaps newer companies that have done well, like Vuori would be one, and Alo Yoga would be another. There's others out there too, like Beyond Yoga, Fabletics. There are a lot of companies in the women's athleisure space, which is Lululemon's main area. Lululemon is still the leader, and competition really is nothing new. Lululemon has faced competition for many years, but it does seem like competitors have stepped up this year with a lot of quality new products at a time when Lululemon hasn't had as many new products to compete with.
And you've also made the point that when sales were weak, the company did not resort to cutting prices in a big way, which can be damaging at an apparel retailer.
Yeah, Lululemon does sales just like any apparel retailer, but even its sales prices typically are not low. Lululemon does charge high prices for its products, and you know it does try to avoid deep discounting, which can really be detrimental to the quality of a brand and margins, and really can cause a lot of damage in the long term. Lululemon really is a premium retailer and a brand, and it tries to maintain that as much as possible, even if it means that it has to sacrifice some sales to lower price competition.
How exposed is the company to China? How big is its China market, and what has been its performance there recently?
The market in China is potentially huge. It is already the second largest sportswear market in the world behind the United States, and it's growing faster. However, this year has been a pretty difficult one for most of the international companies that do business in China. We have seen weakness in sportswear in the country. We have seen high youth unemployment in China, for example, which definitely affects companies like Nike and Lululemon that sell to that demographic. But in the long term, sports continues to grow in China rapidly. We've seen heavy investment from the Chinese government. Obviously, China has hosted a couple of Olympics, so that shows that they're continuing to make big investments in athletics. Lululemon is opening a lot of stores there right now. It's really the main place where Lululemon is opening stores, and potentially Lululemon in the future could have hundreds more, even thousands more stores in China. Some of its competitors like Nike and Adidas have thousands of franchise stores. Lululemon just has less than 200. So there's potential for many more Lululemon stores in China.
What do you think the key to success is in China?
The key to success is to keep the brand as a premium brand. There is competition in China, just like there is everywhere else. There is less competition, though, in China, so that's good. Lululemon wants to keep its prices high there, wants to keep it positioned as a premium brand, which it is. Chinese consumers do view Lululemon as a near luxury brand, probably even more than they do in the U.S. and Canada. And they need to keep that. They also need to put out products that Chinese consumers want. Chinese consumers don't necessarily buy the same products that people do in North America. So Lululemon does have to make sure that it's putting out products that Chinese consumers are looking for.
The company, I believe just yesterday, announced a deal with the NHL and Fanatics for team logoed athleisure wear. Is that material at all to the outlook, or is that a fairly minor piece?
At this point, it's unlikely that it's material. Lululemon is a company that does over $10 billion in sales, so it takes a very big deal to really have a big impact on Lululemon. But it is quite interesting because traditionally Lululemon has not done these types of deals. This is more of the kind of deal that a traditional sportswear company like Nike or Adidas would do. And Lululemon has been moving in that direction. We saw at the Olympics this year, there were a number of athletes, track and field athletes, wearing Lululemon clothing and shoes. And so Lululemon is becoming more competitive in the international athletics area. And it looks like this deal with Fanatics suggests that it's getting more into sponsorships too. Again, Lululemon traditionally has not done a lot of that. It's traditionally used yoga instructors and influencers and people like that, and not so much investing in marketing for sports stars and sports teams and leagues. So this deal with Fanatics suggests that Lululemon is moving more into the traditional sports marketing, which is something that it needs to do because the company is getting very big, and it really needs to expand its market as much as it can.
So you have a hold rating on the stock and a price target, I see, of $296 per share. That's almost exactly where the stock is right now. We can bring up a one-year graph of the stock. What would it take you to move to a buy rating and a higher target?
Yeah, I don't really move my fair value estimate so much based on the stock price. We have seen quite high volatility in the stock price this year, as you mentioned. So it wasn't that long ago that I had the equivalent of a sell on the stock. I thought it was quite overvalued, and it seems that it probably was. Then it wasn't that long ago that I had it as undervalued. Now, as you said, it's pretty close to my fair value estimate. What really is going to drive the stock price higher, I think, and my fair value estimate higher, will be improving growth in North America, as we talked about. That's been an issue this year. Getting back to higher growth in China. The Chinese market is struggling right now, but if it does pick up, that would definitely help. And then margins, just improvement in Lululemon's results could definitely move my fair value estimate higher, and I have moved it higher many times in the past when Lululemon has reported strong numbers. And Lululemon does have a history of beating estimates, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in this kind of difficult period right now. Maybe Lululemon will outperform, and then I would move my fair value estimate higher.
David, thank you so much for this conversation. David Swartz, Senior Equity Analyst.